On page 291 in your textbook, we have some summation formulas that we're going to use quite a bit over the next few days. These are not things you need to memorize, but you do need to either have them in your notes or have this page marked in your book so that you can reference it a lot. So what this is saying is if we are taking the sum of a constant from 1 to n, so for example, let me just scribble this down here. So from 1 to 100, and let's say my constant is 2. Okay, so that means we're plugging in 1 for I. And notice there's no I here, so it's just 2. And then we're plugging in 2 for I. Well, there's no I, so it's just 2. And we're doing that 100 times. That sum is going to be 2 times n, which would be 2 times 100. Okay, so that's what that one is saying. If you are doing this I, so if we're going, basically we're plugging in 1 and then we're plugging in 2. So this one from 1 to n of I, first we plug in 1 and then we plug in 2 and then we plug in 3 and we just keep doing that. That will sum to this formula. So if n is, let's say, 100, rather than adding up the numbers from 1 to 100, we can instead say, oh, it's going to be 100 times 100 plus 1 divided by 2, and then get our answer from there. Okay. The last two are a little more complicated than that. But if we are doing I squared, okay, so we'd plug in 1. So we'd do 1 squared plus 2 squared plus 3 squared plus 4 squared, all the way up to n, whatever our stopping point is. This is the formula we would use. And the same thing with cubes. Okay, so again, you do not need to memorize these, but we need to be able to use them. Okay, so we'll reference these often. All right, so let's take a look at this one here. Number 2, it says evaluate using formulas. Now, right now we're going to ignore this part. We are just going to look at this. So we're evaluating from 1 to n of this thing. Now, let me kind of show you what this would be, and then I'm going to erase this part. So remember, we're plugging in 1, so 1 plus 1 over n squared plus 2 plus 1 over n squared plus 3 plus 1 over n squared, and we're going to keep going until we get to n plus 1 over n squared. Okay, but instead of actually doing this, we're going to use some of the formulas that we just had. So we don't actually want to plug in. What we want to do is we need to get this thing looking like one of those formulas. And let me just go back to them so we can see them again. So remember, we have a formula for a constant. We have a formula for just a plain old I. We have a formula for I squared and I cubed. Those are the only ones we have formulas for. So what we'll do here is a little bit algebra. Now remember, n, that is an actual number. It might be 10, it might be 100, it might be 1,000, but n is a constant. So this n squared that's on the bottom, we can pull it out. So 1 over n squared, since it's a constant, we can pull it out of there. And so now it looks like this. Okay. And then we can also split this apart. Since it's a sum, we can split it into 1 over n squared. And we can do the sum of I plus the sum of 1. And now we've got these written as those formulas. Okay, so we have this 1 over n squared. And then this part here is from 1 to n of I. So if we go up here to that formula again, oop, I went too far. That's what we're plugging in, n plus 1 over 2. So let me go back down and plug that in. So we have n n plus 1 over 2. All right, so now that we've done that part, now we're going to look at this one. And this is from 1 to n and a constant. Our constant is 1. We have a formula for that as well. It's up here. When it's a constant, the formula is Cn. And in our case, C is 1. Our constant is 1. So we will come back down here and plug that in. So this is going to be Cn, which is 1n. Okay. And that's what we have. Let's see. I'm going to clean this up. I'm going to simplify a little bit. Let's start by, let's get common denominators here. Okay, so we get common denominators. So coming up here, I still have that 1 over n squared here. And I have n squared plus n. So n squared plus n plus 2n. So that's going to be n squared plus 3n over 2. And then let's see. I can do n squared plus 3n over 2n squared. And then notice on top, I could factor out an n. So n plus 3 over 2n squared. And then after I have factored that out, let me scroll so I can get a tiny bit more room. I can cancel one of those n's, okay? So this summation is n plus 3 over 2n, okay? So now that I have that, okay, so remember that is, oh, not that. That is a formula for finding this, okay? It's going to be n plus 3 over 2n. So the next part of the problem is they wanted us to evaluate if n equals 10. Well, if n equals 10, I'm not sure where I'm going to put this. I'm going to put it over here. If n equals 10, then the summation, I'm just going to come over here into this thing and plug in 10. I get 10 plus 3 over 2 times 10. So I get 13/20. Okay. If n equals 100, then I'm going to plug in 100 here. So I get 103 over 200. Then they asked me to plug in 1,000. So if n equals 1,000, I get 1,003 over 2,000. And then n equals 10,000, I'm going to get 10,003 over 20,000. And that is way easier than trying to plug in 10,000 terms into this, okay, and actually doing it. Okay, so we're going to be using those formulas quite a bit throughout. Now, the last thing I want to show you is if you have a graphing calculator or if you have Desmos, Desmos does these things, okay? Now, it will do, let me back up to one of our simpler ones, maybe from earlier. Oh, how about this one? This one's super easy. Okay. So from 0 to 5 of I plus 1, we can do this in the calculator, okay, or in Desmos. So let me show you how that works real quick here. When you go to Desmos, you will go to Functions, and under Miscellaneous, you have to click on Miscellaneous. You have a sigma right there. Okay, so our lower bound was 0. Our upper bound was 5. And then the formula was I plus 1. Notice Desmos wants you to use n. So you need to use n. Where's n? N plus 1. And it'll do that for you. Okay, it'll give you 21. If you're using your graphing calculator, it is in the math menu. So if you go to the math menu, it's like the 9th or 10th thing down. You should see a sigma notation or summation notation, and it'll give you this. So I can help you through that when you get into class if you can't find it on your graphing calculator, or you also have Desmos available to you.